What's up, guys? I hope you're keeping well. Today I want to talk a little bit about how I think we can all try and be a little less boring. I think we all know some people we may have come across where when we talk with them, we just automatically feel like, oh, this is a bit dull. This is a bit dull. Now, obviously, boring is very subjective, but when I'm talking in a conventional sense of boring, I'm talking in the sense where if you kind of meet someone and you meet them over and over again, each time you meet them they kind of have the same repetitive stories. They don't, everything that they share, there's not really anything new that they have to share, and in general you don't feel very invigorated by them. Now, I'll say that I used to be very much this type of person, and I still think that sometimes I can be like this, and I still feel like I guess I critically analyze myself, and I feel like sometimes I kind of wonder maybe I am being slightly boring. So with this, I kind of keep asking myself similar types of questions when I feel this way. Am I doing anything interesting? Am I doing anything new? Am I doing anything that's worthy of talking about? Anything that if I have a story to share, other people will kind of gravitate towards that and kind of be like, hey, tell me more. Now, when I'm saying how we can lead less boring lives, I think it's less to do with us in terms of our communication. That's one part of it, but it's more to do with, have we done interesting things? The communication and how we communicate that is, I think, a whole separate topic, but that, which is also another part of being less boring. We want to communicate eloquently and articulately. However, prior to that, I think the prerequisite is actually leading a life where we're doing interesting things. Now, I'm not saying you need to do some crazy out of the box stuff where you're literally putting your life at risk, and you're talking about a time where you narrowly escaped a terrorist attack, and you did. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just things we can do in our everyday lives. We can have interesting lives by having chats with strangers. By maybe I have a friend who took part in a psychology study, and all of us naturally, when he was talking about this, all of us naturally were like, oh, tell me more. What was this psychology study about? This is something that's quite interesting. You can maybe talk about starting a new instrument, or maybe being a part of a band. Naturally, when people have stories that are a little less conventional, where they're maybe doing something, maybe organizing hiking trips, traveling to unknown places, taking a slightly different route, maybe doing something that people less conventionally do, this makes for a less boring personal life, and therefore less boring personal stories to share. So I'd encourage you that if you feel like maybe you're leading a little bit of a boring life, kind of do a little introspection and kind of think, have I done anything interesting in the past couple of months that other people would want to know about? Think about it from your perspective. If you are having a conversation with someone who you think is dull, think to yourself, what would make this person a little more interesting? What kind of stories would they need to live, or stories would they need to share, where you'd be like, hey, please do tell me a little bit more about that. I think if we kind of look at it from that perspective, if we're kind of listening to someone, we're kind of thinking, what would make this person's stories more interesting, we can kind of also apply that to our own lives. This is something that I'm also trying to do, but I think we can all live less boring lives by doing less conventional things and kind of doing things that make us a little bit uncomfortable, doing things that are a little unique to us, where other people also find it unique, and we can easily share our own insights, because people will always be interested in hearing your insights if this is something that they're also kind of looking into. If someone's looking into a very interesting hobby and you've kind of dipped your toes into it, obviously you're going to be less boring for some people because you're doing an interesting hobby, and other people their ears might prop up and they'll be like, hey, please do tell me more about this. So with that said, I hope this was insightful. Apologies for the flies. I think there are quite a few flies here. It's monsoon season here in India, but I just kind of thought I'd whip up my phone and kind of maybe share a bit of a reflection with you, because I've also been thinking for the past couple of months, how can I lead a less boring life? And it automatically just roots back to that same thing. It kind of comes back full circle. Whenever I introspect, it's, what can I do that's more interesting, that I feel like other people would enjoy hearing? But also not just something that other people would enjoy hearing, but also when I'm having conversations with others, what would I want them to kind of talk about, where I'm kind of like, hey, tell me more about that. So this is obviously very subjective. This is obviously in your eyes, whatever you think is interesting. But I hope this also encourages you to try something new, to try being a little uncomfortable, and try to dip your toes into a hobby or an interest, or an experience that's less conventional. Because I think this is how we can all live less boring, mundane, monotonous lives. Thanks. I hope this was insightful, and I'll see you around. Bye.